Welcome, and thank you for joining me. In this explainer, we're diving into an incredibly powerful section of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 251 through 275. We're about to go on a journey that takes us from epic stories of faith all the way to the core principles of a just and compassionate society. Let's get started.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the historic victory that was only possible through divine will. Then, we'll take a moment to really contemplate the magnificent verse of the throne, which is just this incredible declaration of Allah's absolute authority. After that, we'll look at some clear demonstrations of His power over life and death. And from there, the focus shifts to our own responsibilities, exploring the beautiful economics of giving, and then the stark warning against usury, or riba. We'll wrap it all up with a final reflection on the choices these verses lay before us.
All right, so our journey begins with a story that has been inspiring believers for centuries. It's the account of a small, faithful army that found itself facing a massive, tyrannical force. It's a powerful lesson in courage, faith, and where true strength really comes from.
So I want you to picture the scene. You've got the army of the Israelites, and they're just frozen in fear. Standing before them is the mighty warrior Goliath, or Jalut. He's challenging them, and no one, absolutely no one, dares to step forward. And then out comes a young shepherd boy, David. He isn't armed with brute strength, but with something far more powerful, an unshakable faith in Allah. This is the original David versus Goliath moment, and it's rooted right here in the Quran.
And this brings us right to Ayah 251. So they defeated them by permission of Allah, and David killed Goliath, and Allah gave him kingship and wisdom and taught him from that which he willed. Now what's the most important part of that verse? It's that little phrase, by permission of Allah. David's victory wasn't just his own achievement, it was a divine decree. And because of his faith, he was rewarded not just with a win, but with leadership, kingship, and divine wisdom.
Now the verse goes on to explain the universal principle behind this story. You see, Allah has built a system of checks and balances into the world. When one group goes too far and spreads corruption, Allah raises up another group to check their power. Think about it. Without this divine system, tyranny would just run wild and the earth would fall into ruin. It's a really profound lesson on how history and divine justice work.
So from that specific example of divine intervention, the Quran now zooms way out, elevating our perspective to the ultimate source of all power and authority. We're about to encounter one of the most magnificent, powerful verses in the entire Quran. Ayat al-Kursi, the verse of the throne. You know, this single verse is considered the greatest in the Quran. It's recited by Muslims all over the world for protection and as a constant reminder of God's majesty. Just let these words sink in. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the ever-living, the sustainer of all existence. Neither drowsiness overtakes Him nor sleep. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. Who is it that can intercede with Him except by His permission? He knows what is presently before them and what will be after them, and they encompass not a thing of His knowledge except for what He wills. His kursi, His throne, extends over the heavens and the earth, and their preservation tires Him not. And He is the Most High, the Most Great.
The verse kicks off with two of Allah's most powerful names. First, Al-Hayy, the ever-living. His life is absolute, it's perfect, it's eternal, completely unlike our own temporary existence. And then Al-Qayyum, the self-subsisting, the one upon whom everything else in existence depends for its very survival. He needs absolutely nothing, while everything needs Him, every single moment of every single day.
So what does this all mean? Well, it just paints this incredible picture of the Creator's majesty. He's completely free from any human limitations, like needing to sleep. His ownership over everything is absolute. His knowledge is perfect. He knows the past, the present, and the future, while our knowledge is just a tiny drop from His vast ocean. His throne, which signifies His immense power and authority, is bigger than anything we can even imagine. He is, quite simply, the Most High, the Most Great.
Now, to make this idea of greatness less abstract and more real, the Quran gives us some powerful stories as examples. This next part shows us, in no uncertain terms, Allah's absolute and unrivaled control over the most fundamental things in our lives: life and death.
Let's look at two incredible examples. First, you have the story of Prophet Ibrahim challenging a tyrant king. The king arrogantly says, "I'm the one who gives life and causes death," but Ibrahim completely shuts him down with undeniable proof of God's power. Then, there's this amazing story of a man who passed by a ruined town and wondered, how could Allah ever bring this place back to life?
So Allah caused him to die for 100 years, and then brought him back to life, and his food and his donkey were perfectly preserved. It was a clear sign for him and for all of us. These aren't just tales, they're demonstrations of absolute power, meant to plant certainty deep in our hearts.
Okay, now the Quran makes a really fascinating shift. After establishing these core beliefs about Allah's power and justice, it turns to how we should act on those beliefs in our everyday lives, specifically in our financial lives. And it all starts with the beautiful act of giving.
Ayah 261 gives us one of the most beautiful metaphors for charity you will ever hear. It says that the example of people who spend their wealth for Allah's sake is like a single seed. That one little seed grows 7 spikes, and on each of those spikes there are 100 more grains. I mean, just think about that incredible multiplication.
So here's the key takeaway. A single, sincere act of giving can be multiplied by Allah 700 times, or even more. The verse ends by saying, "And Allah multiplies for whom He wills." This isn't just about finance. This is an economy of faith, where the return on your investment comes directly from the Lord of all worlds.
But, and this is a big but, this immense reward has some conditions. It's not just that you give, it's how you give. The Quran lays out a very clear etiquette. First, you have to give from the good, lawful things you've earned, not the stuff you don't want anymore. And crucially, you must never, ever spoil your charity by reminding people of your generosity or by hurting the dignity of the person you're helping. Sincerity and respect are everything.
Now, from the peak of giving, the Quran moves to its polar opposite. If charity is about multiplying good in the world, this next topic is about a practice that completely destroys blessings, the poison of riba. Riba, or usury, is basically any fixed predetermined increase on a loan. It's not about sharing in a business's profit, it's about charging for the use of money itself. And the Quran's position on this is incredibly severe.
The imagery used to describe those who deal in interest is, well, it's not just stark, it's profoundly unsettling. Ayah 275 says that on the day of judgment, they will stand up like someone who's been driven to complete madness by the touch of Satan. This isn't just a financial warning, it's a spiritual one. It's describing a state of total moral and psychological imbalance.
And you can see here, the contrast couldn't be clear. On one side, you have charity, or sadaqah, which allow blesses with increase. On the other side, you have usury, or riba, which allow completely strips of any blessing. Charity builds community and purifies our soul because it's based on compassion. Riba, which creates an economy based on debt, can lead to exploitation and harden the heart. The Quran is showing us 2 totally different worldviews.
And the line is drawn with absolute clarity. The verse explicitly states that Allah has made trade and commerce lawful. That's encouraged. But He has made riba, interest, unequivocally forbidden. There is no gray area here, no ambiguity. This is the divine law when it comes to economics.
So as we start to wrap this up, we can see 2 very distinct paths laid out right in front of us. These verses aren't just a random collection of rules, they're a guide to a complete way of life, showing us exactly how to manage the resources that God has given us.
And what's the reward for those who choose the right path? Well, a subsequent verse gives this beautiful promise of ultimate peace and security. For those who combine faith with action, who establish prayer and give purifying charity, their reward is guaranteed with their Lord. They'll have no fear about what's to come and no grief about what's past. I mean, that is the ultimate spiritual and emotional return on investment.
So really, it all boils down to this. The choice is ours. We can choose a system of giving that builds community and earns God's pleasure, or we can choose a system of taking that corrupts society and earns divine wrath.
And that leaves us with one last vital question to think about. In our complex, modern world, with all of its intricate financial systems, how can these timeless, divine principles of choosing charity over usury, of compassion over greed, guide our personal decisions and our collective efforts to build a more just and blessed society? Thank you for joining me.